Wildfire burn areas may look devastating at first glance, but if you stop to look closely, you'll find they're actually full of life. A new podcast from the Yukon Government takes you inside the charred forests to discover what lies within and learn about why wildfires are important. The podcast series is called Yukon Wildlife and Wildfire, and it's produced and co-hosted by Karen McColl. We spoke earlier. Karen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me where the idea for this podcast came from.
Well, actually, the Department of Environment has had a brochure about wildfire for maybe 20 years now, and it was focused on fires on the North Klondike Highway, kind of in this fire belt area. And it's a really interesting brochure, but of course we know the forest changes, and so it's a little bit outdated now. And it's actually my colleague and co-host in the podcast who decided, oh, maybe we, instead of just doing another brochure, we try a different product, that's something that people can listen to as they're actually traveling Yukon's highways and actually see with their own eyes how these forests have been changed by fire and how they're growing back.
I mean, that's a really good segue into my next question, which is to ask you what you have seen with your own eyes as you've entered some of these burn areas. What are some of the things you've discovered?
We visited forests at different stages post-fire. So the first one we went into is the 2023 Takini Bridge Fire, which is west of Whitehorse. And at the time it was just 2 years old, that area. So it still looked very black, charred, standing dead trees. And sort of when you see these areas at first, they can kind of look apocalyptic or like a dead zone. And then you look closely and you see elk tracks, and you see places where pine cone seeds have opened up and bulls are coming in to eat those. So it's like if you just look a little bit closer, you can see that, oh, actually, like the earth isn't dead. There's things growing there, and it's attracting animals. And then as we visited other forests in different stages of succession, we'd see how the habitat is changed, how the trees have changed and the shrubs, and how that attracts different wildlife and creates different habitat. So it was neat that everywhere we went, we were seeing just different places that would attract wildlife.
Well, we're talking about burn areas as well. They can be a precarious area just because the trees, are quite fragile. So what precautions were you taking when you were in these burn areas just to make sure that you were all keeping safe?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually talking to my colleague, Tyler, for the podcast, I think in episode 2. He's a ungulate biologist. And so when they do moose surveys, he points out that not every burn is the same. Some, lots of standing dead trees, and others just look like pickup sticks where there's just chaos everywhere. And potentially a forest like that, especially in a windstorm, might be more volatile. So the forest that when we went into the Takini Bridge Fire, we went on a non-windy day, and it wasn't really a concern. We didn't see a lot of other tree fall, or we didn't have the worry about that. As always, when we head into these areas, we do take bear spray as a precaution, but for the most part, we just sort of stayed aware.
And what's something that's really surprised you that you learned while you've been making this series, Karen?
Some of it is just the little stuff. I was able to visit a fire with Jill Johnstone, who's an ecologist who actually specializes in post-fire succession, so how forests grow back after fire. And she would just point out things that I might have never noticed, like these little mosses that were growing back 1 year after a fire, and then this tiny spruce tree that was maybe an inch tall after 1 year, and then this aspen tree that was already chest high after 1 year. So just seeing the differences between how these things grow and what that means kind of in the bigger picture. And then the thing that came up repetitively was actually the red squirrel, because there's a certain habitat that red squirrels like, and around many northern communities, we're familiar with white spruce forests, which is where you see a lot of red squirrels because they love white spruce cone seeds. But we just saw the red squirrel everywhere. It's a very versatile animal. So there was one time when we're like, okay, we're probably not going to see a red squirrel here because it's not ideal habitat. And then 30 seconds later, we hear it call. So there was always surprises. Animals move around. They move through different habitats. And yeah, once you start looking and listening, there's always lots of things to see and be surprised about.
That actually is really hopeful to me, because when you drive past these large burn areas, now I'm thinking of in the Northwest Territories, We also had a unprecedentedly rough season in 2023. There are these huge areas of burn that look quite desolate, but animals are familiar with this. They know what to do and they know where to go. And so there's hope there. I mean, with that being said, what do you hope people take away from your podcast?
Yeah, I mean that's such a good point that we do see these areas and they look quite devastated. And also, a wildfire is very serious for humans. So what we want people to take away is that actually wildfire is necessary for the boreal forest. Once the boreal forest gets to a certain age, it becomes less productive. It becomes less useful for wildlife. So the boreal forest relies on fire to give it a reset and to start over again. So we want people to just, I guess, recognize like the ecological benefits of fire, and just kind of have that curiosity about like what's growing and what's moving and what's living in these areas, and then hopefully people can kind of be more alert for wildlife as well when they're traveling through these areas.
Okay, and you have 3 episodes out now. How many episodes will be in this season and how often are they going to be released?
So we have 5 episodes in this season, and 4 are all ready to go. So our 4th episode will come out next Wednesday. Our 5th episode is still a work in progress, but it should be out within the coming weeks. And then after that, we'll see. We hope people maybe get in touch and tell us what they think and what they're interested in hearing about, and then hopefully we can produce more. We'd love to do that.
Well, I'd love to listen to more, so I'm really excited to hear the rest of the episodes. And I want to thank you so much for this conversation today, Karen. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it too.